All right. Here you go, Amit.
Hey, thanks, Vinay. So, welcome everyone. Very good evening, morning, and good noon. So, I hope everyone is enjoying this. So, today we are going to discuss about future method, what future method is, when to use, and what is the benefit of using this future method. What are the limitations of future method? Everything we are going to discuss. So, I'm not going to take much time on introduction about me and what we have. So, here is what we have for our plate today. We have introduction about future method, when to use, and then we will discuss the different use cases of the future method, and then we'll open up the bridge for the open question and answer. So as I know everyone must be aware about that future method is an async process which executes whenever resources are available into the system. So because there are multiple synchronous processes going on behind, so in that case, if you want to execute some piece of code or a particular logic whenever the resources are free and that code is not required. So that is like we are requesting something to do the Salesforce and then we forget about that. It will automatically be processing behind the scene whenever it has the resources available. And future method will be must be static. Why it will be static? Because so that we can directly call from a name of the Apex class. We no need to initialize the class, no need to give the memory in the heap size, and then it will not return anything. That means the method for return type will always be void. So this is a very simple structure of our future method. We need to give it an annotation that is at the rate future. Then you can either make it a public static void or then the name of your method, whatever the name you wanted to define. Then what about what kind of parameters we can pass inside this method is we can only pass primitive data types. That means we have a string, we have ID data type, we have a decimal, we have integer type of variables that we can pass inside the method. But when we talk about the S object or list of S object, we cannot pass. So there is a valid reason behind that why we cannot pass. So before we proceed, we have two questions like why future method doesn't return anything, and if it doesn't return anything, to whom it doesn't return, either you, the developers who is writing the code, or the developer manager, the developer is reporting, or their senior managers, to whom it doesn't return anything. So basically, future method doesn't return anything to the system, or we say that to the operating system where our method is executing. In our case, it is executing on Salesforce platform, so it doesn't return anything to the Salesforce. And why it is not returning? Because we discussed that future method always runs whenever the resources are free. It will be running in the future. It might be after 1 second, after 10 seconds, or it might also take 1 minute. Sometimes it does take. And then why we can't pass a object or collection of a object in inside future method? So there is a reason, or there are possibilities that whenever the future method is there in the queue, some other user is coming into the picture, and that user is editing and that only record for which we executed our future method. So in that case, what will happen? We will be losing our data. That future method will not be getting the updated data if we are passing that subject variable inside the future method. That we will see in a demo as well. So this is about future method, very basic. And then when to use future method. So there are, I'm sure like people are aware that there are two ways, or we can say there are two scenarios where we generally use. One is to avoid mixed DML operation. Mixed DML operation means that whenever we are doing setup and non-setup, we are doing DML on setup and non-setup objects in a single transaction. And one is mainly people said making the external callouts. That is also correct, but we usually say that executing the long-running processes that might include external callouts, or that might include some internal Salesforce processing. There might be some different triggers which are running behind the scene. They have some handlers and they are processing large number of data. So in that case, also we can use future method. And the thing, or the main thing that we need to identify is that what particular logic we need to put inside future method, because if there is a requirement, we wanted the result from a particular piece, and then we wanted to use that result in the same transaction, then we cannot opt for a future method. But if there is a requirement like that piece of code should be running in the future, and we are not waiting for the response from that method or from that piece of code, then that is the ideal way of using future method. And then what about mixed ML and mixed ML operation? There we have setup and non-setup objects. So what are sub objects and what are non-setup objects? So non-setup objects are the objects that are generally available in Salesforce, and user can create a record by going to the UI from the FS classes as well. And even for the non-set setup objects, we can also create. But the difference between, or we can say the key difference between these two objects is from the setup objects, we generally control the security of our Salesforce environment. Basically, we say that the record level security of our particular objects that are available inside Salesforce environment. So few of them are like user with a role. If you are creating a user which doesn't have any role, and that will not give any error. So even for example, suppose that we are inserting account, and then we are inserting user without a role. In that case, we will not get the DML operation, that is mixed DML. But if we are inserting an account record and then we are inserting a user record which having a role, then definitely we will be getting the error saying that mixed DML operation. You cannot perform DML in a single transaction, either in setup or non-setup, or either way. Then we have group member. Group member is also one of the objects by which we control the record level security. So we cannot also insert group members into a group with a non-setup object. Then we have like permission set assignments, QS object, and then we have object permissions, setup entity access, and all the objects that are related to the directory. So we will see what all objects are there. We already have that inside our code. So this is how, like, when to use feature method, and how actually to go with the feature method to define in which scenario we need to go to use our feature method. And now let's go without wasting any time. I'll pause for a 2 minute here if anyone have any confusion before we go ahead for the demo. Okay, so I'll take this silence as no. So this is a class that I have developed. The class name is future utility. This class has multiple methods. So we will be starting from passing this object into the future method and see what will be the consequences, and where that data loss, the possibility of data loss come into the picture. So here is a snippet, code of a snippet that we are going to execute from our anonymous window. Before that, we have this method. So if you see that the method is future with an object, that means inside this method we are passing the account record. How we are passing the account record here? In the form of a string. We know that we cannot pass as object, but there are workarounds. We can serialize those into the form of a string, and then inside that method we can deserialize. That's what I'm doing here. I'm passing complete account record here in the form of a string, and then I'm deserializing with the help of JSON class method into the object that is account. Behind the scene, it actually works as a class. So that's what we have here, account.class. And then what I'm doing is I'm just updating two fields, that is account rating and account industry. And then I'm just doing an update DML operation. So what will happen here? Let's quickly try to execute our code. This is our code where I'm creating an account here, that is future account. And then we have a rating as a code here. If you see here again, I can change this rating as warm here. So industry is banking, and we have got a different industry, that is technology. There is a description, that is demo description for that account. We are not updating description and all. And what we are doing is we are inserting that account. Immediate after inserting that account, we are calling our feature method. We are passing this account code that just inserted the form of a string with the help of JSON class serialize method, and then immediate after, because this future method will be going into the queue, and then once it is in the queue, it has not taken place or it is not in the execution state. What we are doing is we are updating the account name, we are also updating account description, and then we are doing another DML that is saying that update account. And then after doing that, we are just painting an account ID, so that we can have a look what is there inside our Salesforce environment. So now let's quickly execute. So basically, what it should be if we talk about in general purpose, it should give us the output. Okay, it should give us the name as Salesforce as per the code that is it is here, because we are updating the name, and it should give us the description as update from feature method, feature Salesforce. But what it will actually give us, it will give us the same name, that is feature account. So we will see the same, which we will see the same description that what we have here. So if you can see, if you tab anything, so I'm going to open here from the account section. So this is the account that we just created. So you can see here that created it is of today's date, and the account name we are getting feature account, the technology that we just updated from a feature method, rating that we updated from feature method, but description and name are same that we are sending before calling our feature method. So what is happening here actually? So we are sending a complete object record here, a complete account record, and that record is in queue. That means this method will be getting the old record, and after that or between execution of this method, we are updating some other user is coming and then updating the same record. So here we are seeing that we are losing our data. We're not getting the updated data into our system. So that's the main reason behind not passing the as object as a method as a parameter inside feature method. So but if you want, you can pass this as a workaround, but I'll always recommend to pass the record ID. And now then we do have record ID. The same thing we are doing here. We are passing a record ID. We are querying the same record that we are just creating. And then after that, we have some checks here that let should not be empty, and then updating that record. So this time, if we will execute our Salesforce record, we will see that we have got a new object name here. So I'm just going to change here as an HQ, because I already have the account with the same name. And once we will execute this method this time, we will be able to get that it is getting the updated information. So, but even to get everything, so what we will do is we will again not update those two fields that are description and name. And instead of calling without as object, this time we will call with without a object, where we will be passing account ID. So now if we will execute this, so this time, basically, we will be getting the updated account ID, and then we will also getting whatever the updated description that we did here is. So where we have that account ID, so we'll just copy the account ID from the developer console, paste it here into the URL, and then we will see what data we are getting here. So you can see here the name has been changed, and the description also has been changed. And from where it is coming, changes that we made from our developer console immediate after calling the feature method. So that is how passing the ID or passing the primitive data types inside a feature method is useful for us. Now this was the first use case that we wanted to discuss. Now we have if you wanted to create some user with that user have a role, or if you wanted to update a DML. So what will happen if you are updating a DML? There might be an interview question where an interviewer is asking that suppose that I do have a contact record, And after updating the email of contact, I wanted to update the email of the user. Is there any chance of getting HTML operation or not? So most of the people will say that yes, because we are updating a set of objects. But the answer is no.
तो उठोगे
In
फिर
the
रात में नहीं सोओगे
in the user object, we have 6 fields. If you are updating those 6 fields, any of those 6 fields, then only we will get the error. And those fields are like user role ID. That means if you are updating the role of our user, if you are updating a checkbox field that is active, or if you have forecast enable, or if you are enabling our user as a portal user, or if you are changing the username or profile ID. So these are 6 fields. If we are updating any of these fields, then only we will get the error. If there is any other fields, some custom fields, or we are updating title, or we are updating any other fields rather than these 6 fields, we will not getting the error. So that's what we have a method here, which is saying that update user with no DML error. So if you'll execute this, we will not get any error. So now I'm going to say here, instead of Salesforce developer, I'll just change it to Salesforce MVP so that we can have a look, because I already tested this and the title is already there as a Salesforce developer. So if we'll execute this now, we have got this method. We no need to use this particular piece of code. So now what we are doing is we are just inserting an account here, and then we are saying that just update the current logged in user, whatever the user I'm here. So I will just execute this, and as we execute it, I will quickly open my user record just to show you that we do have the title record. We did not get any error. And then in the same, we do have in the same way, we are just inserting a user. And for inserting user, we have 2 methods again. One, we are inserting user without a role, and then again we are insert a user with the role. So for updating also we do have 2 methods. One is where we are updating any of these 6 fields, and one was that where we were updating the user title field. So let's quickly verify first the title one, because in the next demo we'll get that error. So you can see here that my title has been updated to the different the title that we gave from our code. So that's the explanation of like and now if you see executing this particular error sorry method, what we will have is we will get the error saying that DML operation is there. Before we go ahead, let's discuss what we have inside our method. Again, we are preparing the user record for the logged in user. What we are doing is we are again changing the title to the Salesforce developer. We are querying a role where this is the existing role that is available in my Salesforce environment is CEO. And then what we are doing is we are updating the role ID for that current logged in user. That is user role ID, which is listed on these 6 fields. Now, if we execute this code, this time we will be getting the error. As you can see here, we're getting error that is mixed DML operation, and we cannot make any DML whenever we are updating or doing a DML on setup or non-setup object. So that is the one thing that we had, and then these are the 2 use cases, and then the other use case that we have is what we will be doing. We will be inserting a role that one role will like one user will be without a role, because we discussed that if a user doesn't have a role and we are doing a DML on non-setup and setup objects, we will not be getting the error. So then first we have a method where we are saying that create user without role, and then we have a method that is saying that create user with role. So both the methods are calling a method which is get user record, that is already available inside this class. We will see that. But before we go ahead, I'm just going to change here. Let's say that future demo, and I wanted to create a user whose profile is chatter free user. I'll quickly save this. So now we have updated code for our class. Let's quickly try to execute this. And we are not getting any error. If you get back to the user section, we will be getting one more user into our Salesforce environment. The name that we just created, that is future demo future. So these usernames are getting automatically generated based on the method that we are calling. So, but you can see here we are able to get the user. Now again, with the same way, if we follow, we are calling this method which have a role here for the user. We will be getting the error for that. Okay, we are getting, sorry, the method name is create user with role. If we execute this, again we are getting that error, that is HTML operation setup and non-setup. So this was another use case that we were trying to discuss, and then we have one last use. There are two use cases: one for adding the group member, and another one is for making a call out to the external system. So this method is that where we are adding a user to the group. So I have a group here, which type is regular, and then what I'm doing is I'm adding myself as a group member inside the user. And what outcome should be here, we should not be able to add as a group member inside a group. That's what the error says here. So if we will try to execute the same piece of code here in the same transaction, what we will do is we just need to click on execute and we'll get the error. If you wanted to reduce this or get rid of error, what we need to do is we just need to annotate our feature or method as a feature, or there is another there is another way, that is that we know as queuable apex, where we have to develop the code inside the class which is implementing the interface queuable apex. So now if you will execute this, we will not be getting the error. Why we are not getting the error? Because now our method is running into the future, and before this method will get executed, we will get the commit for that particular record. That's why we are not getting that. Now we have last use case that we wanted to discuss is that we all know that feature method is not able to make a call out. So sorry, trigger is if you are inserting any record into the system, and then from the trigger we are trying to call a method which is calling an API to the external system. We cannot make a call. We cannot make a call out if you are not using feature method. So here we have the code. The code is doing nothing. This code is taking the input, the phone. The phone is registering as phone number as an input, and then validating and returning whether the phone is valid or not. So what we are going to do is we already have a trigger here for this, and that is account trigger. And this trigger is calling this method after insert the account. So till now I had commented this code. Now I will just uncomment this, and I will create an account here, provide a I will just provide a phone number here, and we'll see what will happen. Either we are getting some error or what. Okay, we're not getting the error. The reason is that we are calling a method of a different class here. So we need to change this, the class name before calling that method. I think the name is same for both the classes. The method name should be same. Yeah. So now let's quickly try to create here. Why we have try catch here. If we will see into the debug log, we will be getting the error saying that error exception executed, an error occurred while making an API call out. So this is what we have. Let's quickly try to remove this try catch from our code, just to see that we are getting the error here. So now if we will save this code, and this time we will create an account from the UI so that we can see the error. So this is what I have this phone number. The name of account is Salesforce HQ, and we are getting the error here saying that callouts are not enabled, or callouts are not allowed from making the Salesforce trigger. So what we have to do is, again, we have to make this make this method as a feature method. And even without making this method as a feature method, if you'll try to save our method, we will be able to save our let's see what will happen. I haven't tried this, but we will be we are able to save this record, but what will happen, still behind the scene, our future method will be getting the error because there is a annotation sorry, there is a parameter that we need to pass inside future method, which is call out equal to true. So until unless we are not passing that parameter, we will not be able to make a call out. And why we are not getting an error? Because the annotation is a future. That means that code will execute in the future. And then if we have debug log enabled, then we will be getting the error into the debug log itself. Now, before we go ahead, we are updating the account as well with the phone here, saying that either it is a valid or invalid. So I will quickly, we don't have option to clone here. I'll quickly create a new account here with the dummy phone number. So here, let's quickly save it. And there is a pickless field. This is validation phone. Get it, save, and just ignore the alert. So you can see here the phone is saying that it is invalid. Why it is invalid? Because in the phone number it requires the API requires country code. If I'm sending +1, that might this might return a valid code. But I'm not sure either this number is valid or not. So with this, I'd like to discuss few limitations of future method that we have. Is the future method, the main problem is that we cannot debug, and we cannot debug it because it doesn't return any job ID. We cannot track it. Then the second is that we already discussed, we cannot pass as object. And then another is that we cannot change the chain future method, like we cannot call one future from another and then another from the another one. So these are the few limitations of future method that we need to keep into the mind while we are implementing our future method. So with this, I will say that we are good. Over to you, Vinay. And I'm open to take any questions.